Welcome to the Raven Knoll Show. I'm your host, Raven C. Knoll, known as the Soul Physician. I'm a wife, mother, counselor, mindset plus life coach, and speaker, and this is episode number 18. And we're back. Hello, you guys. The Known for Influence series is going so well already, and we're receiving such great feedback, and we're just getting started. So I'm just glad that this series is doing what I hoped it would do, and that just brings me so much joy in itself. So today I'll be interviewing Lorissa Nelson, who represents a true definition of a social media lifestyle influencer or a brand influencer. I know her personally, and I truly enjoyed having this conversation with her because she was very open, she was honest, and I truly enjoyed her level of transparency and vulnerability, but at the same time, just sharing her truth. And so it was really great being able to speak with her in this capacity. And so Lorissa is a leading beauty and lifestyle social media influencer. She's a wife and a mother who lives and inspires the feeling of true beauty. She has collaborated with a variety of brands such as Ulta Beauty, Pampers, Palmer's, Swiffer, and so many more. With over 300,000 followers and 16 million views online, Lorissa uses her strong and growing platforms to serve and encourage women of all walks of life to radiate God-given confidence and live out their purpose as daughters of God through her fresh photo and video content. You're going to love this conversation with Lorissa. Let's get started. Hey, Lorissa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited, as you can see.
You look great.
Thank you.
So I am just so excited to have you today on the podcast, because when you think about like an influencer, you think about someone who has a large following on social media, you think about someone that works with brands and that's like a brand influencer, and just someone that has a huge presence in the social media world, you know, basically doing this type of work full time. That would be who you are. And so I think that a lot of the listeners who are kind of listening and looking for some relatability with influencers, and that may be something that they do, something they aspire to do, I think they can relate to you.
Yeah, of course. I try to aim to be as transparent and honest as possible, especially when it comes to what I do for a living. So yeah, this is something that I am very, very passionate about. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Awesome. Okay. So for you, I know that you do this full time and this is, you know, your career field. Have you ever felt ashamed of being an influencer? Because I know some people understand it, some people don't understand it, some people have opinions about it. And so for you, what's your take on it?
Yeah, so at first I definitely did, just because when I got started, it was around 2015 or so. It was so foreign to people just because it was so new at the time. So it wasn't necessarily a popular thing to do. I feel like for me, for my peers rather, the popular thing to do was go to college, get your 4-year degree, you know, get your master's degree even, and then, you know, go to corporate America and succeed in corporate America.
Yeah.
So when I would hang around my peers and my friends, I would feel like the oddball out because I didn't complete college. I actually had to drop out because I got sick. So, and then I just felt like I necessarily wasn't cut out for corporate America. I've always hated school. I've always hated the kind of structured environment that corporate America is. But now, because I've discovered that this is what the Lord has called me to do for however long he's called me to do it, I'm confident in it. And so, yeah, this is just a season that the Lord has me in right now, and I'm very confident in it. I love it a whole lot. And, you know, now everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be a content creator. Yeah. So it's kind of like the tables have flipped, right? It's like back then, nobody really wanted to do it. It was like the lame thing. It's like, oh, you post pictures for a living and get paid for it. Yeah. Now it's like the cool thing to do. So yeah.
Okay. So how did you grow in that confidence? Because I know it can be very hard to go into new territory that people are kind of like, wait a minute, what is that? What exactly is going on? And then people can be so opinionated. So how did you kind of overcome that barrier of saying, okay, am I going to do this? Is this something I'm actually going to like and love? Do I really want to move forward with this? And really step into that level of confidence to show up, in the capacity that you do.
Yeah, so I feel like the number one way that I grew in confidence was just knowing that this is something that I'm called to do. And then once I started doing it and really figuring out, okay, I can make a living from this and a good living, it's a very lucrative career. And I just felt a sense of vitality every time I got on camera. So it has always been supernatural for me to share my favorite products, sell my favorite products, just kind of be on camera talking about the things that I love and, essentially just sharing my life for a living. Mm-hmm. And so it felt like every time I got in front of a camera, I just came alive. And so I never really stopped chasing that feeling. Good. And it's kind of like second nature now. So I feel like when you're passionate about something and, you love doing something so much, the confidence is natural, especially when you do it so much that you grow and become better at your craft and, you study and do everything that you can do to get better. So I think essentially my confidence is rooted in the fact that I wholeheartedly know that this is something that I'm supposed to be doing and that it's actually making an impact.
I love that. And I think that outside of it being just something that you feel like you naturally have the ability in, I love that you said that you feel like it's a God-given call. You know what I mean? And so that in itself helps you to sustain throughout the career. You know what I mean? Because you feel like it's something that God has positioned you to do. So I know as an influencer, there's probably also this expectation people have of you to kind of live your life up online, right? To show up and to share certain aspects of your personal life and your personal struggles and all those different things. And I know that you do share certain aspects of that, but how has it been challenging for you, or what challenges have you faced mentally and emotionally with having a career that requires you to be front facing, requires you to show up online, and also requires you to have a level of transparency and vulnerability in front of hundreds of thousands of people?
So mentally, you kind of feel like you're not good enough. Mm-hmm. And you subconsciously start to compare yourself to others in this space. Mm-hmm. So then you subconsciously feel like, you don't measure up, you missed the mark, you're behind. And I feel like that can really take a toll on how you feel about your work, but not only about your work, but how you feel about yourself. And so I feel like the lines can get kind of blurred sometimes. Yeah. And then you kind of start to look at the numbers more than you look at the impact. And it can really make you feel like, you're doing this for nothing, when in reality, you're not doing it for your followers or your audience. I mean, that's just kind of a plus, if you will. You're doing it because God has called you to do it. Right. And so I really had to, kind of separate the two. Yeah. And then obviously there's the trolls. Everybody hates the trolls. And for me, when I first started out, I had no idea that I was going to grow to the level that I'm at now. Mm-hmm. So I think across the board, I have over 300,000 people consuming my content. Mm-hmm. And when I take a step back and I think about it, I'm like, this is a lot of people. Like if you had an arena full of 300,000 people, that's scary. And so for me to have to digest the fact that so many people are just watching me live my life out loud and, they have their own opinions and criticism. It's just, if you're not grounded, it can eat you up. Yeah, it really can. So I had to stand firm in who I am and who actually called me to do this work, because honestly, if it was up to me, I probably would not be on social media at all. Because it's so energy consuming and time consuming. And if you're not firm in your boundaries when it comes to, okay, this is my work, this is my life, even though I have to merge the two, I still have to have boundaries. It can really, really mess you up.
Yeah. I can only imagine because, part of my business is online, but not the full aspect of it. And so I think that there's a total difference when the work that you're producing is always being measured by that many people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
at just right in their hand. You know what I mean? Like anything that you produce, if it's like a YouTube video, if you go on IG stories, it's always being measured so easily and quickly by so many people. You know, I think that it definitely would require a level of inward strength to be able to show up in that capacity. So I definitely feel that what you're saying, I just am like, oh my God, when you think about it, you measure it, that's a lot.
It is. It definitely is.
So what do you feel like out of all of that and everything that you do online, what is the number one stress point for you being an influencer?
I would definitely have to say the work-life balance, just because your life overlaps with essentially your life is your work, right? Yeah. Like you're putting your life out there.
Right.
Whether it is, vlogging your day-to-day life, which I do. I do the vlogs, I do the routines, and I just literally share my life for a living. So those lines can get blurred very, very easily. Yeah. And I've had to learn, I have to put boundaries in place when it comes to separating Lorissa Nelson, the brand, and Lorissa Nelson, the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes things a whole lot easier, not only for me, but for my family and for my followers as well. And so, people can feel entitled to everything about you, and oversharing it can be easy to overshare. I'll just say that. And I have overshared a ton in the past until I was like, okay, yes, this is my work, but at the same time, I still have to honor my privacy. Yeah. And so when you establish those kind of boundaries, it's easier to separate, the brand versus the actual person. So definitely the work-life balance thing.
I think that's an issue for anybody.
Yeah. But just imagine having to have a camera in your hand all the time and essentially film every single aspect of your life just so that you can get paid.
Right.
And so I kind of had to take a step back and be like, okay, when it comes down to it, how transparent do you want to be? What kind of an impact do you want to make? Right. How do you want to bring value to people's lives? And you can do that without oversharing.
Right.
That's something that I had to learn the hard way. And then this is a little side piece, but I found out that there's a whole gossip site dedicated to talking trash about influencers and social media personalities and celebrities. And one day I found out that I had my own thread. And I was like, y'all really think I'm that important to dedicate a whole thread to bash me or whatever? And so that's when I really had to scale back and be like, okay, these are the things you can share. These are the things that you can't share, because there are people out there who are waiting on you to fail. Yeah. Yeah. So, I just feel like that work-life balance is something that I had to learn the hard way, but I have definitely learned it.
I would definitely say there's, pros and cons to the online space, but like something like that is definitely one of those things that you don't want to have to experience.
Right.
Would you say that that's the moment where you felt like it was the turning point where you said, okay, I have to separate who I am as a person based on who I am in my career, even though they overlap a lot? This is now getting to the point where it's like, hey, I got to have a straight line across what is what and what is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way I look at it, you have to, for what I do as a career, you have to look at it through the lens of, okay, this is essentially like the criticism and the opinions of people. It's essentially customer feedback.
Yeah.
Right. So because this is my job, I'm in customer service, giving my followers what they want. Yeah. And I had to learn how to take that criticism and use it to either get better or, let that affect me personally. And it's not necessarily personal. Yeah. Because like I said, there's Lorissa Nelson, the brand, and there's Lorissa Nelson, the person. What people see on social media is Lorissa Nelson, the brand. So any feedback they have, any kind of criticism, you have to take that and look at it through the lens of customer service, essentially. Right. Or else, you're going to get your feelings hurt.
That's good because I
Yeah.
think, earlier you kind of talked about, having that criticism and then also having that applause and those likes and different things of that nature. And so I know that people can be very critical. It comes with just the territory, being online, being in that space. And maybe they agree with your actions, your beliefs, your decisions. Maybe they don't. Sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
hey, that video was good. Sometimes it's like, social media don't really let you get the reach that you want to get, or you got to change your marketing, all these different things. And
Yeah.
so kind of swinging all the time between the two, right? Getting criticism, finding like blogs and articles like you found. And then you have people that are commenting and saying, hey, I love you, Lorissa. Thank you for sharing all these different things. How does that like impact you negatively or either positively? Just kind of swinging back and forth, having that hyper criticism, but also having those applauses and different things of that nature.
For me, I do my very best. And this is why it's important for me to stay on my face in prayer.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it can be brutal. It really can, especially the hypercriticism.
Yeah.
But I feel like you just can't let any of it get to your head, the hypercriticism or the praise, because it's like, again, you have to look at it through the lens of customer service. Even if you are getting tons of praise, essentially they're just saying, okay, your content is 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever. And you can take that feedback and use it to either get better or just keep doing what you're doing. Right. So you just can't let it get to your head. It definitely feels good because, again, the likes and the comments and stuff, I think you get a shot of dopamine or something like that. Yeah. So it feels good. And it's good to know that what you're putting out, people are enjoying it and loving it, and is enhancing their lives in some type of way or bringing some kind of value to their lives.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's just kind of reassurance and confirmation that what I'm doing is still in the will of God.
Okay, good. So with that being said, I know that sometimes like because people aren't necessarily standing in your shoes, how do you think that they kind of misunderstand or misinterpret you, when it comes to, maybe put boundaries up or something of that nature? How do they misinterpret or misunderstand some of your actions at times?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, I don't even know. I feel like, well, let me say this.
Okay.
You have to understand that not everybody who follows you or everybody who comes across you or your content online is going to like you.
Yeah.
And I had to get that through my head early on because when I first started doing this, I was a people pleaser. I always have been. I want everybody to like me. I try not to have any malicious motives in my heart, which is why I'm always on my face in prayer, asking God to search my heart and stuff. And so when you have that kind of heart, if you will, it's very difficult when you get attacked or someone says that they don't like you, or if I say a certain thing and people don't understand my sense of humor, I can get misconstrued. And, if you blink the wrong way, essentially, people can misinterpret that as in, this girl is this kind of way, when in reality, I'm totally not. And so you just kind of have to let that expectation go that not everybody is going to like you, and that's okay. And people, I think the best thing that has helped me is knowing that people see you through the lens of their own life.
Yeah.
And so whatever they project on you, it's 9 times out of 10 not about you. It's about what is going on the inside of their heart.
Right.
And so I've just tried not to take all of that personally, even though sometimes it gets really, really hard not to, because like I said, I mean, there is kind of like a level of that I want to please everybody still within me, just because nobody wants them to dislike them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think especially in the industry that you're in with being an influencer, it's important that people like your content, because ultimately what you're trying to do is work with brands and different things of that nature and make a bigger impact with your creativity and the different things that you are producing. But I think there's also this fine line sometimes where it's like there's those inward struggles that may show up outwardly. And how do I make sure that I'm not allowing those things to affect how I'm producing content or how I feel about what I'm producing and different things of that nature? So I think it's real. You know, at the end of the day, that's a true thing. And I think that a lot of influencers, ultimately, when you are in that space, I want people to like the content that I'm producing. I want people to like my videos. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a real thing. And I think it's okay to say that, but also it's okay to say, here's an inward struggle that sometimes shows up with that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you. So that brings me to my last question, which I ask all my guests on this series. And for you, or just in general, what do you feel like is the cost of relevancy and influence?
I think when it boils down to it, the cost is definitely, and I'm just going to be completely honest, the negative impact that it has on your mental and emotional health. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people can dance around that all day and say, no, not me. But I feel like, I think I read this online once, that we are not wired to have so many eyes and so many opinions and thoughts about us being thrown at us all the time, the way that social media has wired us. And like I said earlier, I still cannot process the fact that I have over 300,000 people watching me live my life out loud. Like, that is scary. And you have so many expectations from so many different people who you've never met.
Yeah.
And, you know, knowing that you just can't please everybody sucks. It sucks.
Right.
So, you know, like I said, especially if you're a people pleaser, but then you have people who are putting you on this pedestal that you never asked to be on in the first place. And so if you do something that upsets anyone or essentially causes you to fall off of that pedestal that you never asked to be on in the first place,
right,
it feels horrible knowing that, you know, you let somebody down. Mm-hmm. And so, I would just say the sacrifice, the time, the privacy, especially the energy, the knowledge, everything. But like I said, at the end of the day, anything you do is going to cost you something, right? And even scripture tells us that if we want to follow Jesus, you're going to have to pay the cost. So the question that I ask myself every morning when I get up, especially when I don't feel like turning on the camera, or I don't feel like putting on makeup, or, you know, I don't feel like putting on this poker face because this is my job. The question that I always ask myself is it worth it? And I've learned that if God has called you to do something, he's going to require something out of you. And so the answer is always yes. It's always going to be worth it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Lorissa, for sharing.
Thank you so much.
This has been the Raven Knoll Show. Thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast so you're the first to know when new episodes are released. And don't forget to leave a review. If you can't wait until the next show, follow along on Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter at RavenCKnoll for more tips and to keep the conversation going. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram or take a screenshot of this podcast and share it to your IG stories. I want to know about your takeaways from the show. Don't forget to tag me and use the hashtag RCNPodSquad. Lastly, visit my website at ravencknoll.com and join my email list to get exclusive bonuses only for my email subscribers. Thanks again for rocking and rolling with me. I'll talk to you soon.